What is the secret sauce that makes successful business owners successful? Honestly, sometimes it's luck, but I'm a big believer in focusing on the things that I can control. And honestly, I really can't control luck unless I'm manifesting it for myself, but that's not the topic of today's podcast episode. So today I'm going to share the things that I have personally done that are within my control that have made my business successful and that have helped make me a millionaire. And spoiler alert, it was not some proprietary strategy or hack, and it honestly wasn't even my investing strategy that made me a millionaire. It's something that is honestly a lot less sexy, but a lot more realistic for the vast majority of business owners to implement. This is the Profit and Prosper podcast, the podcast that empowers female entrepreneurs to make more money, become financially independent, and live prosperously. I'm your host, Sarah Young, a seven-figure agency owner and business and wealth coach who has worked with over 100 entrepreneurs to create more profitable, sustainable businesses. So anytime I do a podcast interview, one of the questions I almost always get is, what has made you successful? And it's really weird to be asked that question because I don't feel like it was that long ago that I was sitting here pretty new in business owner land, looking around everybody else like, what am I supposed to be doing? And so to be asked that question and to actually have an answer for what works in business is kind of crazy. It's weird how time flies. But ultimately, my answer is what we're going to talk about in this episode. So I define myself as being a millionaire because I have a net worth of over $1 million. And a lot of that, but not all of it, but a lot of it is from my business. And it is because my business has been profitable. It has grown. It has value. And I have evidence of this because when we bought our other accounting firm that we bought last year, we took all of my financials from Young & Co. over to the bank, and they're like, yep, we agree. Like, this has enough cash flow being generated that we're willing to lend against the value of this asset so you can go buy another asset. And that was not created from any sort of strategy or scheme. I feel like when people talk about what makes you successful or makes you wealthy, so many times we get caught up in these just the hacks and thinking that there is some sort of secret sauce to what makes you successful because we maybe don't want to face the reality that we have to put in the work. I have put in a lot of work, and admittedly, yes, there's absolutely a whole discussion to have around luck and my background and everything. And so not discounting that, but I also I like to focus on the things that are within my control. And so how can I run a seven-figure agency? We got a team of 10. I also have my coaching work that I do. I'm also a mom. I exercise consistently. I typically don't work face to laptop work time 40 hours, even though not that long ago, there were times when I felt like I was just completely tied to my business. I was working after my son went to bed every night. I was not able to fully relax on the weekends. I was constantly skipping time with my husband and never taking time to just exist. And so how did I shift from being in that place to where I am now? I'll tell you before I talk about the 4 things I've done outside of investing that have been the most crucial to me becoming a millionaire really quickly. Here's what didn't make me a millionaire. One was holding on to every task in my business because I tell myself in my head I can do things faster or better than somebody else can. 2 was trying to jam more and more clients onto my calendar, which was already pretty crowded. And then number 3 is shifting and implementing a new offer or a new marketing strategy every other week. So keep listening. We're going to cover the 4 things I have done outside of investing that have been the most crucial to becoming a millionaire and building a successful business. Number 1 is that there is very little time between me making a decision about something and me implementing that decision. When I decide to do something or when I decide that I want something, I go and get it. I don't delay. I don't procrastinate. I don't waffle around about whether that decision was the right decision. I make the decision and then I start taking steps pretty much immediately to implement whatever it is I have decided to do. I realize that different people have different decision-making styles. And so I think you have to understand what is it that you need to make a decision and to feel good about that. But also, once you have made that decision, to trust your decision-making process. Acting on decisions quickly has made me more successful, not because everything that I do works out perfectly, because it absolutely does not. I have put offers out there where people don't buy. I have put podcast episodes and content and stuff out there that I thought was going to be amazing and nobody cared, right? Acting quickly, implementing quickly has not worked out perfectly every time. The reason that this is so helpful is because it gives me more reps. More reps gives me more chances for success. I can quickly see whether it is messaging or offers or a certain strategy in my businesses. I can see very quickly what works and what doesn't work, because rather than sitting back and thinking about doing the thing, I'm actually doing the thing and testing it out. Okay. I see a lot of business owners get stuck and not taking that action, even if they want to do something so badly, because they're afraid that they might fail, or they're continuing to, try to justify to themselves that they don't necessarily need to do the thing that they want to do, or whatever the reason is, right? A lot of times people will get stuck doing things that make them feel busy without actually taking the real nitty-gritty action that they know that they need to take. For example, not that you shouldn't listen to podcasts, but spending all of your time consuming learning material, right? Podcasts, social media, books, courses, because they think that they need to learn more before implementing, or waiting until you have the perfect logo, website, offer, messaging, plans, whatever, to put your stuff out into the world. If you want to see more success quickly, you have got to shorten the time frame between deciding to do something and actually going to implement that decision. So that's number one. The second thing I did that has made me a millionaire, I think, is focusing on one income stream first. So we all hear the quote, millionaires have on average 7 income streams. And that may be true, but they are not millionaires because they had multiple income streams. It's that when people become wealthy and they have excess cash coming in, then they turn around and invest it into create even more income streams, which helps compound on their wealth, right? As a business owner, I think the best thing we can do is to not get shiny object syndrome. It's so easy in this world to see all the different strategies and all of the noise that's out there, to doubt your plans. You try this whole business thing, you maybe try a new offer, whatever you're doing in your business, like sometimes the results just don't come as quickly as we want them to. And it can be really easy to start doubting yourself and say, hey, maybe I should pivot. Maybe I should try a whole different type of business. Maybe I should switch up. Instead of trying to do done for you, maybe I should do coaching. And sometimes the answer is absolutely yes, you should do that. But in most cases, we just have shiny object syndrome and we're uncomfortable waiting. We're uncomfortable and we don't have the patience to keep our focus on the prize, on the plan that we know is good, on the strategy that we had confidence when we started that it was going to work, right? And just staying the course. So I started Young & Co back in 2018, and it was not until I think it was the fall of 2021 that I created a different type of offer, and I did my first round of a group coaching program. And I did it because I had pivoted to CFO offers. And so I felt at the time that I was leaving out like a population of clients, potential clients, because of pricing. And so I wanted to offer a way to give them the guidance that I was giving to my CFO clients in a group setting. And so maybe it wasn't a huge pivot, but it was a very different type of business model. But I did my first round of that program back in like the fall, late summer 2021. And then I was going to do it again after the 12 weeks was up. And I even had somebody signed up, but then my dad passed away in September, and then we had tax deadlines. And I just remember thinking, like, I have got to stay focused on the main thing, which is this main business here, getting working with the CFO clients, just like staying focused there, trying to bring on a few more clients there I knew was going to be more successful at the time than building up the coaching programs. And so I would say that was like the biggest pivot away from my core strategy I had ever made, even though I wouldn't say it was like a huge pivot, but it definitely was different, right? And then I remember I had to reel myself back into focusing on the main thing because, at the time I only had one full-time, one part-time team member. And so I knew that I just needed to keep growing to be able to hire more team and then free up some more of my time. And then it wasn't until February of last year of 2023 when I was having a conversation with my husband and I had this realization that I had enough, right? That we could have at the time, sold, and we could still do it now, but we, could sell the business. We'd have to downsize our house. We'd have to cut back on some of our like living expenses, but there was a world in which like we could live off of our investments. If we kind of converted some of these assets that we have, the business and our house, into cash, that we could have taken that and lived off of it forever and never had to work again. And so when I had that realization, it was later that summer when I was like, okay, now that I have enough, I feel like I've reached a place where I'm good to start letting myself not have 100% of my focus on Young & Co. And there's absolutely been some trial and error over that time. Like there's probably some times where I should have focused more on it. But that's okay because it's all a learning lesson. It was like, how can I continue juggling managing this business and also doing the things that I really also love to do? Because I don't want to just put off all of my joy and fun until I'm retired, obviously. But I think that there was definitely just a time until I got to where I felt like, okay, we have enough here, that I needed to stay focused and not get the shiny object syndrome. So your goal here is to focus on just doing one thing really well. Serve a particular type of client with a particular type of offer, get really good at doing it, create a lot of profits in your business, and then take that profit and start investing. That will make you a millionaire in the next 2 to 5 years if you execute that strategy well and stay focused, okay? But if you get shiny object syndrome and you get in that place where you feel discomfort because things aren't necessarily working like you want them to, and then you start implementing a different strategy every other week, it's going to be hard to make progress against your goals because you're going to have lost the focus. And you feel busy when you're implementing all of these different strategies, but you're not actually making progress. And then you think to yourself, oh, this isn't working. I need to try something else and see if that's actually finally the thing that makes me suddenly a millionaire. And then the cycle just keeps on repeating itself. Okay, so stay focused is piece of advice number 2. Number 3 is that I keep showing up even when no one is listening, which is a really hard thing to do. And there's definitely areas of my business where I'm better at continuing to show up consistently than others. But honestly, y'all, like business is a numbers game. And I think that staying consistent at showing up over a long period of time is going to trump short periods of really intense activity and then falling off the wagon, okay? And so it's hard, I think, to keep showing up when you feel like no one cares, when you think that no one is listening. But I think if we keep posting the content, keep putting out the podcast episodes, keep making the connections with people, continue making offers and putting yourself out there, yes, absolutely, you're going to do things that fail, but because you are consistent over the long run, and more people, I think, hear us and pay attention to us than we even realize. And I think by continuing to just stay consistent, even when it's hard, instead of giving up when, you post something and you just hear crickets, I think is what helps you find out what actually works, right? So it's like, again, back to the more reps thing. The more reps you have in your business over a long period of time, you're going to outlast people. The second reason why I think that continuing to show up consistently, it's like the tortoise and the hare thing, right? I think it has to do with energy. I think when you are faced with a situation that feels hard and you don't want to show up, but you decide to show up anyway because you remember in the back of your mind that somewhere out there, somebody's waiting to hear from you, then you're putting that energy out into the world of the openness, right? You are open to receiving. You're opening up the lines of communication as opposed to, becoming discouraged and hiding and not talking to people because, you posted a couple times on social media for a couple days and no one reached out to you, right? You're pretty much guaranteeing you're not going to find customers if you hide. Versus if we continue to show up and think and act like the person who already has the thing we want. That's like manifestation 101. It's also habit building 101 is creating be embodying the identity of the person who already has the thing you want. Continuing to show up is going to turn you into a successful business leader. Okay. So that's number 3 is just continuing to show up even when it feels like no one is listening, because more people are listening than you even realize. And then lastly, number 4 is I ask myself on almost a daily basis, what would millionaire Sarah do in this situation? And I realize it's ironic to ask myself that because I am millionaire Sarah, but sometimes I don't remember that I am. Like a lot of us, I grew up in a pretty middle-class family. I mean, we certainly didn't want for anything, but we were also not super wealthy. No one in my family has really ever identified as being wealthy. And I always grew up thinking that a millionaire is somebody who lives on the house, up on the hill, in the big mansion, behind the fence, and that was just not me. And so I still have to remind myself that it is me now. And so when I ask myself, what would the millionaire version of Sarah do in this situation? I'm remembering to keep that identity of somebody who is wealthy, who is living out their dreams, who is having things go the way that I want them to go, right? It's the person who isn't stressing and isn't working long hours, who takes care of her health, who is present for her family. I'm remembering to take on that identity. And when we take on the identity of the person who we want to be, who we want to embody, that is sort of a tenet of all sorts of different things. So there's, thought work, right? Doing mindset work. Taking on the identity of the person who acts that way will change the thoughts and feelings that you have, which change the actions that you take. If you read Atomic Habits in there, he talks about taking on the identity of the person who does the things you want to do and asking yourself, what would they do in this situation for the same exact reason? Because you're going to change the habits you have if you take on the habits of the person you want to be. And then even if you learn about manifesting, the thing with manifesting is that we want to start acting as if we already have the thing. And so taking on the identity of what we want is going to manifest all of the things that you want. And you start to become aware when you do this of ways that you're operating out of alignment with the self that you want to be. You'll start to make the tiny, seemingly inconsequential choices that are ultimately what actually create change over time, right? So start thinking like the millionaire version of yourself, or whatever descriptor you want to have, the successful version, the wealthy version, the powerful version. Start taking on the identity of that version of yourself, and you will find that you will reach your goals so much faster. All right, y'all. So that is it for this week's episode. To recap quickly, the 4 things that I chalk up as helping me create a successful business and becoming a millionaire because of the profits that I've had in my business are: 1, having very short time frames between making a decision and implementing that decision. Number 2, focusing on doing one thing really well and growing that income stream before adding any other income streams to my business. Number 3, continuing to show up even when it felt like no one was listening, even when it got hard. And number 4, remembering to take on the identity and ask myself, what would the millionaire version of Sarah do in this situation? So before we go, real quick reminder, I said this last week, but I have got something up my sleeve that I have been working on. I'm really excited about. I'll share the details in a few weeks, but it is going to be the place to be if you are a female business owner who wants to create a more profitable business and be able to build your first six figures in wealth and investments from your business. This is the place to be. This is not going to be just reserved for people who are really advanced in their businesses. It is for you too if you are newer or smaller. This is going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to share details. So if you want to be the first to know when I drop details on all the things I've got going on behind the scenes, make sure you get on my email list. You might want to grab my new guide, the Wealthy CEO's Guide, where I walk you through the 4 keys to financial freedom for business owners. The link to that will be in the show notes, and then you will also be on my email list. You'll get my Millionaire Monday newsletter, and then of course, first access to everything I put out. So that's it for this week, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you back next time. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Listening and learning is great, but implementing what you learned is even better. So what's one thing you can do this week to make more money in your business, save for your financial future, and start living your most prosperous life? If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and share with a friend because it helps me reach more amazing female entrepreneurs like yourself. See you in next week's episode.